Your brain's secret addiction, why you love to hate. Hello, curious minds, and welcome. Today we're going to talk about a pleasure, a slightly darker one. That little tingle of satisfaction you feel when your rival team loses the game of the century, or when that politician you can't stand makes a massive blunder in public. It's an emotion we all feel, but few of us admit to. And today we're going to take it apart piece by piece to understand why it exists and what it tells us about ourselves. I promise that by the end of this journey, you'll see this guilty pleasure in a whole new light. The key word here is one you may have heard before, Schadenfreude. It's a German term that's become world famous because it doesn't have a perfect one-word equivalent in many languages. Literally, it means joy from another's misfortune. It is, in essence, feeling pleasure in someone else's misfortune, and not just anyone's, but typically someone we see as a rival, someone we believe had it coming. Think about social media. How many times have you seen someone who constantly flaunts their perfect life suddenly post that their dream vacation was canceled? For a split second, a part of you feels a little spark of poetic justice, right? That's the engine driving so much online drama. We don't just like to see success. Secretly, we sometimes enjoy the stumble. And this isn't new. It's almost as old as humanity itself. Picture our ancestors on the savannah. Life was a constant competition for limited resources, food, shelter, mates. If a rival group lost a hunter or their cave flooded, that, as cruel as it sounds, meant a direct advantage for your own group. The other's misfortune was, quite literally, your opportunity to survive. That programming, that cold calculation of their loss is my gain, is still ticking away in our brains. So there you have it, joy in others' misfortune, social media drama, and an evolutionary root. But this is just the surface, the tip of the iceberg we all see. If this is what's visible, what secret engines, what invisible mechanisms are churning below the icy waters? Buckle up. Here comes the first big reveal. A lot of this pleasure has less to do with the other person and more to do with you. Studies in social psychology, like those led by researchers such as Wilco van Dijk, suggest that people with lower self-esteem feel Schadenfreude, that joy in others' misfortune, more intensely. Think about it. If you're feeling insecure, the downfall of someone you perceive as superior or successful gives you a temporary boost. Their failure, in a way, closes the gap between them and you. For a moment, it makes you feel just a little bit better about yourself. And knowing this is an incredibly powerful tool. On one hand, you can use it to understand group cohesion. When a team celebrates its rival's defeat, it's reinforcing its own identity. We are the good guys, they are the bad guys. It's a way to bond. But, and here's the danger, it also helps you spot red flags and identify toxic envy. If someone in your inner circle seems too happy about your small failures, if they actively seek out news of your stumbles, that's not healthy rivalry. It's a sign of a deep-seated insecurity that can turn destructive. Their pleasure doesn't come from their own success, but from your lack of it. There's an invisible rule that governs almost all of this, cosmic justice, or as psychologists call it, the just world belief. Our brain is wired to want the universe to make sense, for good people to be rewarded and bad people punished. That's why the pleasure of seeing someone else lose is much greater if we believe that person or group is arrogant, deceitful, or hypocritical. We feel like the universe is setting things right. It's a very comforting form of self-deception. And this connects directly to a factory defect in our brain, in-group bias. It's simple, we favor our own and distrust the others. Our brain automatically paints our team as noble and the rival as evil. So how do we fight this? It's not enough to just say, don't be biased. The active strategy is called steel manning. It's the opposite of straw manning. Instead of ridiculing the other's position, you try to build the strongest, most persuasive version of their argument. Force yourself to understand why they believe what they believe from their most intelligent perspective. This exercise not only makes you more empathetic, but it also disarms your own need to see them fall. Think about the town squares of old, where public humiliation was a spectator sport. The punishment wasn't just the punishment itself, but the collective shaming. Today, we don't have wooden stocks, we have the internet. Cancel culture, the practice of withdrawing public support for someone due to their actions or statements, can become, when it goes too far, the digital version of that same town square. The practical takeaway is to be mindful of the power we hold. It's one thing to criticize a bad idea, and quite another to revel in the personal destruction of the person who expressed it. The line is thin, and history teaches us that it's very, very easy to cross. If we put all these pieces together, the key real-life takeaway is this. The pleasure you feel when someone else loses is rarely about them. It's a mirror. It reflects your insecurities, your need for justice, your loyalty to your tribe, and your own biases. So the next time you feel that pang of joy, instead of just savoring it, ask yourself, what is this telling me about myself? Understanding this is like having a superpower. It allows you to navigate the social world with much more clarity. But if you thought we had it all figured out, get ready, because this is where the story descends into true chaos, a maze of contradictions. Here we enter the first major controversy. Where does the joy in seeing an idea defeated end, and where does hate speech begin? On one side, you have those who defend nearly absolute freedom of speech. For them, what's at stake is the right to criticize, ridicule, and even celebrate the downfall of ideologies they consider dangerous. On the other side, you have those who argue that this pleasure becomes a weapon, fostering violence and discrimination. For them, what's at stake is the safety and dignity of vulnerable communities. It's not an easy debate. There's a widespread myth that we can separate our emotions from our ideas, that we can debate politics, sports, or science from an ivory tower of pure logic. It's a lie. And we love to believe it because it makes us feel intelligent and objective. The reality, as shown by neuroscience, is that our emotions, especially our tribal ones, are deeply intertwined with our reasoning. When your side wins a debate, you get a hit of dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter. Your brain literally rewards you for being right, regardless of whether you actually are. Now, for a paradox that will blow your mind, empathy, that ability to feel what another person feels, is what allows us to be good and compassionate. But studies from Yale University have shown something incredible. That same empathy is what fuels our worst tribal instincts. We feel a profound empathy for the suffering of our own, and that empathy can lead us to wish harm upon the others, those we perceive as the cause of that suffering. So the very force that binds us together is the same one that divides us most violently. How do you solve that? Let's think about something most of us accept without a second thought: sports fandom. We normalize it, we celebrate it, but what if I told you it has a dark side we ignore? Ethically, is it okay to build such a large part of your identity and your weekly happiness on the defeat of another group of people? Is it okay for a bad day from an athlete you don't know to ruin your weekend, or for their victory to bring you more joy than your own accomplishments? We're outsourcing our happiness to outcomes we can't control, and basing it in part on the sadness of others. It's something to think about, isn't it? In the past, political rivalry, though intense, often ended with a handshake. Debates about the other side's defeat centered on policies and results. Today, the conversation has shifted. Thanks to social media algorithms that feed us what angers us most, the other side's defeat is no longer just political, it's moral. It's no longer they lost the election, it's evil has been defeated. We've gone from disagreeing with ideas to dehumanizing the people who hold them. The celebration of defeat has become far more personal and therefore far more dangerous. And all of this points to a fundamental problem of the human condition, the search for meaning. In an increasingly secular and fragmented world, tribes, be they sports teams, political parties, or online fandoms, give us a sense of belonging and purpose. Hating the rival is a very simple and powerful way to know who we are. I am the one who is not like them. It's a shortcut to building an identity. But is it a solid identity? Or is it a hollow one defined only by its opposition to something else? Okay, take a deep breath. We've navigated the chaos of controversies, paradoxes, and ethical dilemmas. You survived. Now it's time to level up, to look at the details that separate the curious from the true connoisseurs. Let's head down to the engine room. If Schadenfreude is pleasure in another's pain, did you know it has a lesser-known evil twin? It's called Glücksschmerz. It's another German word, and this one means pain from another's good fortune. It's basically envy in its purest form. And often these two emotions are two sides of the same coin. Not only are you happy when your rival loses, but it almost physically hurts to see them win. Understanding this gives you a complete picture of the emotional map of rivalry. On a brain level, what happens is fascinating. When your rival fails, your brain releases dopamine in its reward center, just like when you eat chocolate or win a prize. But it gets more complicated. At the same time, activity decreases in the anterior cingulate cortex, which is the part of the brain associated with empathy. It's as if your brain has a switch. When it sees an enemy, it turns down the volume on empathy and cranks up the volume on reward. It's a chemical cocktail designed to make you enjoy the show. Long before psychologists had brain scanners, a philosopher with an impressive mustache had already figured it all out, Friedrich Nietzsche. He didn't see it as something petty, but as a fundamental part of what he called the will to power, that internal drive to grow and dominate. For him, seeing a rival fall was an affirmation of one's own strength, a yes to life in its rawest, most competitive form. He was one of the first to explore this emotion without moral judgment, seeing it as a fundamental human drive, a secret hero in this story that is often forgotten. Conventional wisdom says that envy is always bad, but some researchers, like those at Tilburg University, are proposing a rebellious idea. There are two types of envy. Malicious envy, which is the Glücksschmerz that makes you wish for the other person to fail. But there's also benign envy, which inspires you to improve. When you see someone's success, instead of wanting them to fall, you say, I want that too, I'm going to work harder. This theory is a game changer because it suggests that rivalry doesn't have to be destructive. It can be the best fuel for self-improvement. Here's a research finding that clashes with our intuition. Whose misfortune do you think brings you more joy? A distant, powerful rival, or someone very similar to you in your own field who is just slightly more successful? The science says it's the second one. It's counterintuitive. We'd think we'd hate the big boss more, but no. The fall of someone on our own level who reminds us of what we could have been gives us a much more intense pleasure. It's because the comparison is more direct and therefore the threat to our self-esteem is greater. And this is where it all clicks into place. Remember how we talked about self-esteem, cosmic justice, and benign envy? The detail that ties it all together is the concept of control. Aha! If we perceive someone's success as undeserved, injustice, and unattainable, low self-esteem, lack of control, we feel malicious envy and rejoice in their misfortune. But if we see their success as deserved and achievable, control, we feel benign envy and become motivated. It's not the other person's fall we're really after. It's restoring our sense of control and justice in the world. With this level of detail, the picture becomes much sharper, more authentic. It's no longer a simple guilty pleasure. It's a complex mechanism of our psychology. We've reached the edge of what is known. Do you dare to look toward the final frontier, toward what we don't yet know? Imagine a future 100 years from now. Artificial intelligence doesn't just personalize your news or your shopping, but also your rivalries. Systems designed to keep you hooked on a game, a social network, or an ideology by creating custom-made enemies for you. Algorithms that know exactly what kind of defeat will give you the biggest dopamine hit. We could be living in a constant emotional Cold War designed to keep us polarized and consuming. It's a little scary, isn't it? And here, science hits a wall. We can scan the brain and see which areas light up. But we can't answer the fundamental question, why does it feel a certain way? Why does joy in another's misfortune have that particular quality, that subjective flavor? This is the so-called hard problem of consciousness. Science describes the how, but philosophy has to grapple with the why of the experience itself. Is it just an evolutionary glitch? Or does this duality of pleasure and pain serve a deeper purpose in the universe of consciousness? The philosophical implication is dizzying. If our perception of reality is so conditioned by who we consider the hero and who the villain, does that mean we don't live in an objective reality, but in a story we tell ourselves? Perhaps the universe isn't a collection of facts, but a battlefield of competing narratives. And our pleasure in seeing the other side lose is the confirmation that our story, our version of reality, is the correct one. This challenges the very idea of a single truth. And this brings us to the future of humanity. The biggest problems we face, from climate change to pandemics, require unprecedented global cooperation. But our tribal brain, with its pleasure in the other's defeat, is the biggest obstacle. If we don't learn to master this instinct, to flip the us versus them switch to an all-encompassing us, we could fail as a species. Understanding joy in others' misfortune isn't just a psychological curiosity, it's a key to our survival. And the most provocative idea of all might be this. Maybe we aren't designed to be happy. Maybe we're designed to struggle. And our entire search for peace and harmony is, in reality, a rebellion against our own nature. Our journey is over. We've gone from the surface to the outer limits of speculation. Now, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture we've painted. At the beginning of this video, we talked about something as simple as that little smirk that escapes when your rival sports team loses a big game. And now look where we are. We understand that this little smirk is an echo of our ancestors' struggle for survival, a reflection of our self-esteem, a product of brain chemistry, an ethical dilemma, and a key piece in the future of humanity. We've gone from a guilty pleasure to one of the keys to understanding ourselves as individuals and as a species. It's been an incredible journey. And now I ask you, what idea from this entire journey resonated with you the most? What piece of the puzzle made you say, wow, I'd never thought of it that way? I'd genuinely love to know. Your perspective enriches this conversation immensely. So please share your thoughts in the comments. We read as many as we can. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the human mind, consider subscribing. Every video is a new journey into the ideas that make us who we are. Thanks for joining me on this adventure. Keep questioning, keep exploring. Because the most important question isn't why they lost, but what you gained by understanding it.